To access OneDrive, which is cloud storage. If you haven't had this already set up on your computer, see most of you're all on Windows, which is great. That makes linking or mounting the OneDrive folder to your computer a little bit easier, just so you can get to it really quickly. For me, I'm on Mac, but the process is pretty similar. There are two different ways to access OneDrive. One is going to be through the browser, and one is going to be through a desktop app. Let's go over the browser version first. This is kind of the first step, and then you can download the desktop version if you'd like. So you can go to, in your web browser in Chrome or in Edge or in Firefox, whatever you're using, just go to usc.edu/office365. I know I've talked to at least Allison about this before. You can use this to access your email through browser as well. I use this over the Outlook desktop app, but I only really deal with one email account. Pretty simple, and this will bring you to your, like I said, your USC email account. And then up on the top left, you'll see this little grid of squares. This is your kind of your app launcher. And here you'll be able to access directly all of the other Office 365 web apps, including OneDrive. So when you've signed into your email account, you'll authenticate through your typical red single sign-on screen, click the app launcher button, and then open up OneDrive. So this is your personal OneDrive, right? I've got a bunch of files in here. This is like a backup of an old laptop I've got folders that I've created. This is for me. I haven't shared most of these things with anybody else. These are just my files, and right now I'm the only person that can access them. What you'll see on the left-hand side are a couple navigation icons, and the big one that you'll want to look for is shared. So when the new, I don't know what the new USC NetID name is, ASC Admin 1 or something. Yeah, so you'll get shared.
Okay. What is it?
It is ASCJADM number 1.
Wait.
That's spelled out just
ASCJ ADM 1.
It's all lowercase.
Yes.
So
that
that's
access point. Sorry, all that access point hasn't been set up. It was just that's the name.
Yeah.
That's the name of our folder.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the name of the future account that's going to be holding all of these files. So like I was saying, my OneDrive right now has just got my stuff on it. There'll be a central account that's going to have all of your shared documents on it. And that folder with everything else, all the tiers of folders underneath, is going to be shared with you. How you access that, you'll get an email that'll say ASC admin or ASCJ admin1@usc.edu is sharing a file with you. You'll get an email notification, but you can also access it by going to your OneDrive, clicking on shared, and then you'll see both the individual files and folders that have been shared with you, as well as the documents that you share. So you can track some of this stuff. Hey, I needed somebody to view something really quickly, but they don't need to have continued access to this folder. You can go in and take a look at everything that you've given access to, and remove access if you don't want to. But for our purposes, we've got a folder that was shared with me. This is the demo folder, and that's what we'll be using to go through things with this particular outline. So something that will be helpful for you is you'll get this folder shared with you, right, with all of the different files and folders underneath it. If you go to the top level, so for me, this demo folder is inside Annenberg Admissions, you can add this shortcut to My Files. That way you don't always have to go back to files that were shared with you and then find the one that you're looking for to access the the shared documents that you're all using. You can just add this shortcut to My Files. And now, do you have the demo folder?
Oh, I have to go in the demo folder.
Yeah, you've got to open up. Yeah, so when you're inside the shared folder, the folder that was shared with you or the file that was shared with you, you can add it as a shortcut to My Files. That way it shows up on the main list and you don't have to dig around and try to hunt for it later on. So now when I go back to my OneDrive, you can see, in addition to all my personal files, I've got this folder icon with a little link on it. This is a file that was shared with me. You see it's got a different owner, Annenberg Admissions, and now it's just easier to access.
So I already had admission.
You go to my files,
Yeah, if you go to My Files after you've
add it.
you've saved the link or added it to My Files, then it'll show up in My Files. So I've got a bunch of stuff in here. You know, this is up to you how you want to organize your personal storage. So I've got a bunch of other stuff, but amidst all these other folders, I'll find the Annenberg admissions one. So this is already OneDrive. We're already in OneDrive. If you've got a file browser on your computer that you're pulling up, you know, your File Explorer or your Finder on Mac, you're just sifting through different folders with files inside or other folders inside and just going down. OneDrive is the same exact thing. You're just accessing it either through a browser or through a desktop app. The nice thing about using the browser is that most of the Microsoft Office applications have web versions. So you, at least for me in my workflows, I often never open up any of the desktop applications. I don't download individual files, individual Excel files or Word docs or anything like that. I'm working with them all pretty much 99% of the time in Chrome. And so we'll go over that in just a second. The basic user interface is pretty straightforward. You've got again, we'll go back to My Files. You've got a list. Think of this kind of like your desktop, right? You've got all your different folders that you've created. So here we've got our Annenberg admissions. We can go into this demo folder. Maybe we'll go into admissions program, Annenberg ambassadors, 2021, 2022. And you'll see, just like when you are using your File Explorer, you'll see the whole tier or tree of different folders that you're now kind of nested inside of. This is helpful if you do, you know, copying and pasting or duplicating stuff from semester to semester. You do in OneDrive, just like you act in OneDrive just like you would in your desktop or in the shared drive. You're just copying and pasting folders into the correct locations, but it operates the exact same way. So here we've got our a bunch of different files, individual files that are inside this folder. We have,
Excuse me, Josh.
yeah.
Should we have the same thing you have? Because when I'm in Annenberg demo emissions programs, I don't have any of, well, I have that.
Yeah, so then I just clicked into Annenberg ambassadors. I was just looking for an individual file that we can use to take a look at some of the other features of OneDrive. Great. I'm gonna make this big. And maybe I can make it bigger. There we go. All right. So we've got our different folders here. Again, navigating this is just like any other file browser. If you want to create new files here, you can do that with this blue New Files button. If you want to make a new Word doc, you know, maybe this is now, rather than the 2021, 2022, you're doing 22, 2023, and so you're making some new documents. You can just create those right here in Outlook. You don't have to make a desktop version of a Word doc and then upload it. But if you've already got existing documents that you want to include here, or maybe you're working on something locally and you just forgot to upload it, you can do that through the Upload button as well. You can upload individual files or whole folders right to OneDrive. So pretty simple, just like, you know, anything else that you're uploading, an email attachment or something like that. It's the same thing, so you can just add those files and folders there. If you want to create a new document, then you click on New. You can make a new folder or individual doc. I'm going to go ahead and I'll make a new, this is all right with you in this demo folder, new workbook. All right, great.
I have another question for you, Josh.
Mhm.
See how you had new and upload?
Mm-hmm.
Should I have that as well? I do not.
You don't? Let's see.
See here?
Ah,
Do not
that's a really
have
good
new.
question.
Okay, Josh.
All right, all right.
That was on me.
I don't
All right,
So
let's
this is
see.
an example. They have view only.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh,
Interesting. All right,
I have view only.
Yeah. So
Because this is demo.
well, we were gonna cover that a little later.
I'm in my own OneDrive. I'm not in this demo.
Yeah.
Because I have it.
Yeah, you can use your own drive if you want for now, if you want to play around with some of this stuff.
Got it.
So if you have your own,
I have my own OneDrive. Okay, let's go see.
you probably have stuff you
Hmm?
accidentally
Hmm?
put
Want
in
me to switch
there.
them over to edit?
You can if they want to. Yeah, as long as you've got edit, then
Did you hit
yeah.
save
Okay,
and
cool.
went to OneDrive and you're like, okay, I lost my
Oh,
document.
I do. I have some.
I know.
2016.
Like, I didn't even know what what I was doing. It's like, yeah, I'll save it to that. You know, whatever.
Wow. Okay, so I do have some Bridget stuff.
Yeah, you'll see in OneDrive and SharePoint, they're really linked. There's a lot of documents. If you use Teams, documents that you've shared in Teams might be found here. You can get quick access on the left-hand side to different Teams and SharePoint sites that you have access to. But for now, let's focus on OneDrive. And so something that I'll mention in a bit is about editing access or sharing with edit access versus read-only access, which may be important to you, may not be important to you, but that's something that you want to be sure you're choosing the right option whenever you're sharing folders and files with others, because a lot of times you might just click, okay, I'm going to share this. There's a share button. It's pretty front and center, and forget to click the little drop-down menu that says I'm sharing with Bryant, and I want him to have read and edit access. Maybe you're just sharing read access.
So what is it that people do wrong when they send you something, but then you have to go back and ask them for permission to see what they sent you? That is probably the most irritating thing that happens to me. How do you prevent that from happening?
That's on the user side.
Right.
So let's say I've got this new.
Usually you're not logged in.
You do have to be logged in. That's a good point. So that's one reason why we went through that usc.edu/Office365 and are right now at least are working in our browser. That means we're signed into our Office 365 account because these folders are only accessible when you're signed in. This is cloud storage. You've got to authenticate. USC is pretty locked down. It's not just like anybody that can figure out the random URL up here can find these files. This stuff is pretty locked down. So you need to be signed in. And then the people who are sharing those files with you, they need to make sure that they're sharing with edit access. So let's talk about that. I just made a new Excel workbook in this 2021-2022 folder. So anyone with access to this particular folder would be able to see this new Excel workbook, including Bryant. But if I wanted to share it directly with him, I could also find the file right here. This is book.xlsx. I two-finger clicked or right-clicked, and I can rename this. Let's call it the demo Excel file. And now, when we have this particular file selected, you'll see a couple different icons show up. When you mouse over this little arrow button, this is the share button. You've probably seen this in all the other Office 365 apps. If you click this button, this is how you share a direct link to a particular file. You could say, hey, Allison, I need you to sign off on X, Y, or Z. Don't force her to dig through 30 different folders to find this thing. If that's simpler to just share this link directly, then you can do that. So let's say I want to share this with Bryant. And right now, next to his name, we've got a little icon. And this is where people go wrong, I think, because it's just a small little icon. Right now, he can only view pencil with a line through it. But I want him to be able to edit. And you can do this for the link as a whole. Maybe you're sharing this via email or something like that with everybody in the team or with people that are outside of the department. You want them to take a look at something. You can include entire groups or different people, and you can specify, okay, anybody with, that's authenticated as a USC staff member can view and edit this link. And so you can
go back one.
Yeah.
Is this where I want you to go back one more? Wait, maybe this is. How did you get that longer one? Because I have what you have on the screen now.
Mm-hmm. And so when we're right here at the bottom, copy link. So if you wanted to share a link maybe via email, which I do all the time with folks who maybe aren't working on the files day to day, but James Vasquez needs to see some report I've created or something like that. I'll just share a link and maybe CC other people who may want to take a look at it. So in that instance, you can do this. Rather than just straight copy the link with this copy button, you want to make sure the folks that are getting the link can do with that document what you need them to do. So right now we see the icon is indicating people you specify can edit. And for something that's not super sensitive, maybe it's just, okay, anyone who gets this link that's signed in with their USC email address can view and edit this file. or maybe it's just people with existing access or specific people. In this case, I'm sharing just with Bryant. And then there's a checkbox you can allow editing or just have them view. So these are just things that will start to become second nature when you start sharing via OneDrive. But if right now you're just sending links to individual documents or just saying, hey, it's in this particular folder, if everyone is given edit access to a folder, then they can view and edit everything inside that folder. But this is really for if you're ever sharing with people outside your team or you're creating a new document and you haven't uploaded it to a folder that everyone has edit access to already.
So if on the first level you say that you want them to be able to edit, you still have to do it again when you do the share?
No, if we edit, if we're just sending to a few people,
Right.
then you can just add their names in here.
Okay. Thank you for spelling my name.
Yeah, of course. I almost did A-L-Y-Y. I
I
don't know why. So let's say, okay, I'm going to share this with Brian. I'm going to share this with Allison. We want you both to be able to edit, and I can even include a message to go along with this because just like I mentioned before about the whole folder for your department being shared with you and you getting an email about it, this file will be sent via an email as well. Folks can get it through their OneDrive and the shared files, but they'll get an email kind of as a notification or an update.
Question for you.
Mhm.
Under the link settings, so I guess back from here where it said anyone with the link, people in the
Mhm.
university, gives you all these options. So the anyone with the link, is that blank? Well, no, that's not the case. I was gonna ask, is it blanked out because you have names there, but mine doesn't have any names there and it's still gray.
That is USC ITS's restrictions on USC data, basically. Yeah. So anybody with the link can't, what if, God forbid your emails are intercepted by somebody else, somebody has your, logins or something like that, or you CC the wrong person. People have to authenticate as USC users to get inside our Office 365 instance. Basically, we're a silo.
So we couldn't use Office 365 to say send a document we wanted to send to a prospective student if we put them in unless they have a usc.edu.
You should be able to send a direct link if you specify them here. I think for things like that, then you might be using something like DocuSign or you've got another procedure in place. Really what we're talking about is internal communication and sharing, right? These are working docs. So yeah, anyone with a link, that's not the case for anyone building anything in OneDrive that's tied to your USC account. That's just locked down across the board. But we can say anybody at USC with a link or specific people. So I'm going to apply these settings for this link, and I'm going to go back here. Oh, let's see, I close myself out here. All right, and so then I'm letting them know that they can edit, and I'm saying great. So you'll get a confirmation. Link to this particular file has been sent. If these folks have access again to this Annenberg Ambassadors 2021-2022 folder, they can get it through there as well or find it in their shared documents. And you'll see if I go to shared and then shared by me, I'll be able to find that in this list of all these millions of other files that I've shared before.
But we can see it in the list because it's demo. It's in that demo folder that we already.
Exactly. Yeah. So access is given in a couple different ways. The easiest one and the one that you're going to most likely use is you've already got access to that top level folder, whatever the main folder is, ASCJ, admissions, I don't know, working documents or ASCDM 1 folder. And so anything that's built out inside there, all the tiers of folders, you're going to have access to as well. Sharing individual files gets helpful when it's one thing you need someone to take a quick look at or review, or you've got 1,000 different, student files or something like that, and you want them to be able to view just this particular one.
So it's interesting. When it hits your OneDrive, it doesn't say you have something waiting or it's new. You actually have to pay attention to the email
Mm-hmm.
to know that something came to you.
The email's the notification. Yeah.
Except to look and say, oh, this came to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they all look the same. You know,
Yes, they
these
do.
you'll see everything in Office 365. All the branding and stuff is very very samey. So keep an eye out on those emails if you decide that your particular team's workflow is share individual files with one another rather than say, hey, okay, this folder has been updated. You can go ahead and take a look at it when you need. So if you're sharing one-on-one folders or files one-to-one with each other, those will come through email. That's the main notification. And if you click on that, you'll be able to actually open up the individual file in your browser. Again, this is how I work a lot of the times. I work with Excel, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint. You can do this stuff in the browser. And maybe this is a good time. I mean, I have an example of it a little later.
Can I ask you a quick question
Yeah.
related to sharing?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a particular folder that we want all of our interns to have access to. We can share the folder to the 6 of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
So let's.
then when they graduate, we can take access away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's say there's this is 2021 interns or something like that. You could share with those individuals. You can input them specifically, just those 6 folks, and then if you want to manage who has access to this information later, you can do that through this 3-dot menu. You'll see 3-dot menus, just 3 vertical dots all over the place. Those are going to be on individual files. Those are going to be on folders, and so you can take a look at who's gotten access. This is this demo folder, so we're not listing anybody here except for people who have that direct link. But if you're the owner of it or you have access to it, then yeah, you can remove access through this manage access. This 3-dot menu is also really helpful for other things that I'll get into a little bit later. But if you look at the drop-down menu for individual files, you'll see even more options. You can open it, preview it, download it, print, delete. The big one that we'll talk about is version history, which I think if you don't currently deal with this, it comes in handy when you've got a lot of people dealing with the same folders and files a lot. Sometimes stuff just wires gets crossed and you realize, okay, something I was working on earlier is missing. So you can go back through version history and find those edits that you made previously. Super handy. Happens with us all the time. For now, I just wanted to kind of briefly go over some more of the kind of user interface for the browser client. So again, this is OneDrive, and again, we haven't left the browser. We haven't left our browser. We've opened up OneDrive. We've gone through our different files, our different folders, found the file that we wanted to open, and opened it up just in another browser tab. Allison, I can see that you're actually already in here. You wanna try to make a change in this file and see if we can? No? All right, Bryant, you're up then.
What am I?
Whatever you'd like to do, yeah.
And this is in that demo.
This is in that demo.
So we all can be in here together.
So we're all in here editing at the same time. We're seeing live. I can hover over any individual's names and see, okay, who's editing this particular cell. You can look up on the top right next to the share button and see who has the document open. So, Allison, if you've been telling Bridget to take a look at something and you want to see if she's actually reviewing this particular document, you can open it up and see, okay, who's in there right now, who's playing around with the file, who's working on this particular document. Maybe you want to be hands-off and make sure you don't step on someone's toes. You can author or what's called co-authoring. You can work in a document together, but if you want to make sure that you're not going to overstep or copy something to a place that somebody else might be working on in 2 minutes, you can say, okay, I see that Bridget's working on this right now. I'm not gonna open this up. I'll wait till later this
I
afternoon.
literally have seen that and didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've done that in like Google Docs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, let me get out. She's
Yeah.
doing stuff.
This is Microsoft's answer for Google Docs. Everybody loves being able to open up a Google Doc and work on it together. We do it mostly for like brainstorming stuff. If we're just jotting out ideas and we've got a working doc where we're not, maybe articulating everything in a huge project plan, we're just throwing out bullet points for, workshop ideas or something like that in the digital lounge. We just throw up a Word doc and I just leave it open in another browser tab. And when something comes to me, I pop over to that browser tab. I'll type something in there. I'll see Sean, our coordinator, working on something together. This is handy for kind of this kind of casual collaboration. And then you can decide if you want to jump in there with somebody else if it's something a little bit more important.
So did you just create a new Excel document or did
Uh-huh.
something? Okay.
Yeah, I created a new Excel document called demo Excel file.xlsx. You can find that in the 2021-2022 folder. And so we're all in here right now playing with this together. And most Office 365 app functions are found in the browser versions. If you're doing super heavy duty Excel lifting, it is still working in a browser. So that might be the case, a use case for using the desktop application. I know the budget teams talks about that sort of stuff because they're working with huge amounts of data and spreadsheets are linked and stuff like that. So they work in the desktop app a lot more than I do. But we'll work with student rosters or something when we're distributing licenses to our Adobe students and we've got 4,000 records and they're all there in the same sheet and I'm just pulling it up in my browser.
So the desktop app doesn't allow you to see who's digging around in it.
The desktop app works a little bit differently. You can, and I'll go over that in just a second. You can open up a file in the desktop app and it will lock that file for editing. So say I open this file up in the desktop app. Other folks would be able to view the document at the moment, as it was the moment that I downloaded it for working in the desktop app. But until I sync it back to OneDrive, then they can't make changes to that specific file.
So kind of how our shared drive works now, you take a copy of it to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
see whatever it is you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make changes and save it because you're saving a copy.
Well,
versus the actual.
OneDrive is different. OneDrive, the reason why it locks down the file so that others can view but can't edit is because you actually are, even in the desktop app, you are working in and saving to the cloud version of the document. So any changes are synced. You don't have to download a copy, make changes, and then double check what's on the shared drive and make sure everything's matching up and then upload the new version. All you got to do is click the save button in the desktop app and then it will open up for other folks with those changes that have been made. But we'll go over that in a second. I'll go over desktop apps. I think now is probably the right time. Any questions about working in a browser? I know that it's a little bit different, but it's basically an Excel document that you'd be using on your desktop. It's just opened up in Chrome or Edge.
So this is all browser work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll see in the top left of my screen, you'll see it says Chrome. I've just got Google Chrome opened. It's in another browser. You see my bookmarks and everything else up here on my browser. And we've got a bunch of different tabs open now at this point. I've got my Outlook, my email, I've got my OneDrive, and I've got this particular Excel file. And you can open up a bunch of different things at the same time. If I wanted to open up the Ambassador Bingo file, I could do that. We can all jump in here and make changes if we needed to. All right. So we can close that now.
So it's interesting. I was looking for it at the top, but it wasn't at the top. So that's why it took me a minute to find it because I had to look for it by the most recent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can sort. You can sort just like you can with others. Like maybe you want to sort by name, A to Z, or yeah, exactly, or date modified, older to newer, something like that. So it's just like your file browser on your computer. You do the same kind of sorting. All right, so this has all been Outlook for, or OneDrive for the web. The desktop client is, I think, helpful. It's neat to have a dedicated app for this kind of stuff that you're going to be doing regularly. You don't have to have a million tabs open in your browser window if you don't want to. You can just navigate and manage all your files through a desktop app. I've got that downloaded on my computer right here. And you can download this. I have a link on that handout, but you can download this if you can do a simple search for like USC ITS, maybe OneDrive download.
Is one preferable to the other? The browser versus the desktop client?
I use a browser a lot because it's just convenient. I've already got the browser open.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of heavy lifting. I like the desktop client for OneDrive just when I'm looking for stuff. I just got a dedicated app. I don't have 30 different tabs open with a million different files. The way that the desktop app works is it'll open up. Let's say I've got my let me refresh this here. I've got my Annenberg admissions folder, demo, admissions program, ambassadors 2021, and then where's our demo Excel file? You'll see it just opens straight in the app window, rather than in a separate tab.
But the, okay.
Oh, so when you're in desktop, you know you're in desktop.
You know you're in desktop because now on the top left of my screen, we'll see, at least on Mac, it'll show the application, Microsoft OneDrive. You'll see on your dock or however you have your desktop situated, you'll see Microsoft OneDrive up in the top of the navigation
Now,
bar.
what was the?
I don't know what I have. It
Yeah,
must
no,
be-
that was gonna say, Bridget.
Ours looks different.
Yeah, yours
So
will look.
yours is native to PC, so for Windows, what happens is it just looks exactly like a Windows thing. So when you look forward to, it's gonna be that file folder. Bridget, you'll have that on the bottom,
Okay.
next to your Outlook button.
Next to my
For
Outlook.
you, Allison, it would just be like if you open a folder
Okay.
or a
Mhm.
window
So,
folder. It's not a
what
web
is the
thing.
login for? What is the link? How do you have to type in? I was typing in USC ITS, but you were typing
Oh,
in
that
before.
Yeah, I just did a Google search for USC ITS OneDrive download.
Download.
These are just keywords I pulled up. But I have the direct link on the handout here if you wanted to type it in exactly for their download page.
Oh, okay.
So this has a step-by-step walkthrough for installing the application. Windows is easier than Mac since it's all natively installed. It worked for Mac as well. So if you do have interns or other folks on your team who are using a Mac, then you can mount the OneDrive folder here. I've got mine saved as well. But in Windows, yeah, it doesn't look
That's great.
doesn't look as pretty. I think they are updating that for Windows relatively soon, maybe with Windows 11. I don't know if you've all got updated systems. But for now, it looks like a file explorer, and you can find it just like you would any other folder that's been shared with you or mounted to your drive. So you'll see up at the, you finding it, Bridget?
No, I'm gonna try now typing in your login here.
Okay, yeah. And you'll see links up on the top of that particular tutorial or walkthrough, OneDrive for Windows, for Mac, or for mobile devices. So you just click the one for your particular system and go through installing that. So this will have the app will have you sign in, just like any of the other Office 365 desktop apps. If you're trying to access Word or something like that, you sign in through your Shibboleth single sign-on. You got the little red screen, enter in your credentials, and then you've got access. It should keep you signed in after you've signed into one of those, so you don't have to do it for every single application. For me, I've already done that. So I've got my OneDrive app opened, and it works just like the desktop client. It even looks identical, at least for me. For Windows, I don't have a test machine with OneDrive on it, but it should just look like a file browser. And I've got my Annenberg admissions file folder here with all of the other things that have been shared with me that I need to maybe have access to, as well as my individual OneDrive file. So, good practice if you are working, I don't know what your schedules are like in terms of hybrid, on-prem versus remote work, but OneDrive is a great solution to that stuff. If you've got a desktop computer or a laptop that you work from at home, and then you keep a desktop or a laptop at work and you don't shuffle the same device back and forth, OneDrive allows you to not have to worry about missing anything. If you're saving all your personal files to your OneDrive account, and you've got access to your Annenberg admissions files through OneDrive, you can get those at home just by signing into your USC account and accessing OneDrive. If you've got OneDrive installed and signed in, those things will sync. So you don't have to worry about, oh shoot, I was working on this thing on my desktop and I forgot to save it to the cloud, or I forgot to bring my laptop with me. You can get all of that stuff anywhere as long as you saved it to OneDrive in the first place.
Yeah, the cool thing too for me, like, well, at least getting more practice into it. Like, for example, the annual reports we run, I work on it natively, like I say, on my laptop and everything. But I knew I was gonna travel, needed to see something, I needed to get it. I just put it on my OneDrive, and then either on my phone, on my iPad, in this case, my sister's laptop, sign into my USC account, so it'll pull up in my updates. And that's it.
So I have to download this.
No.
Well, no, you do not.
No.
I'm a crazy exception.
No.
No.
You do not, but
No.
there is that.
We're still using the OneDrive till
Yeah.
we finish.
Wow.
That's what I meant
That's
yesterday.
what I'm
Yeah.
And
talking
we were
about.
not moving the stuff we
Yes.
need.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why this is just a sample.
Got it.
Yeah, we're using a demo folder because we don't have your real data is not up there yet. But in the future, that's one of the goals, right? Is
Right, to be able to.
yep,
To move it.
be able to
Mhm.
yeah, access your stuff from everywhere. It makes it really convenient. There's a little bit of headache getting stuff set up and making sure everyone has access to what they're supposed to have access to. But hopefully, sounds like Frank is going to be dedicating some time at some point in the future to getting you all set up with the correct levels of access, and hopefully having this recorded and having a little bit of a training session here. Or if we need a refresher later on, you could always ping me via Teams. I can jump online on Zoom or something like that and explain any of this stuff if needed.
You've always been so great about doing that. We appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you.
I definitely appreciate it.
Happy to help wherever possible. There's no reason for you to Google a bunch of stuff that I already Googled before you. And
That's what I learned the last time.
I-
we met.
yeah.
Oh, that was like-
yeah, I can just relay that stuff over. So let's say, okay, we've got our desktop client, a version of OneDrive already open. I'm going to go into my folder. I've got my demo folder, admissions program, and let's say I want to go back and edit that same Excel file that we were just playing with in the browser. Now I've got it open in my desktop app. I need to do some more heavy lifting. I clicked on that file, and yours might look a little bit different because you're working on Windows, but you can select to open in either Excel Online or the web version, the browser version, or I can open it in the desktop version. And what'll happen is I gotta allow this to open up Excel. It'll download this file. And one thing that you'll notice when you have files that are saved to OneDrive open in the desktop client, in the desktop version of the app, you'll see the save icon has a little, it looks kind of like a recycling icon, or it's basically a sync icon. So this is save, not just locally, this is save to the cloud. This is save and sync online. So if I make some changes, let's say I added this this text here. I want to save that and sync that to our. Oh, that's not syncing. Maybe I opened in read only. Literally did this earlier today with a different file. Let's try this one. All right, so I'm going to try a different file just to make things a little more clear for y'all. Open up this Annenberg Ambassadors Bingo. Let's say I want to open it in Word. I'm going to allow. And now let's make a little change. Let's make a great. All right, so I made a little change, and now I want to sync. For some reason, the other file I opened was locked to view read only, and I think that maybe just has something to do with the fact that we shared all of these folders through this demo and maybe me creating it or something like that had a little bit of an issue. I'll figure that out and I'll let you know if there's something specific we need to do. This one's worked though. So we've got, again, that save icon with the little sync button. I'm clicking save. After I made those changes, I can close this file. And now we can even go back to, let's say, our OneDrive and look at it in the browser. And you can see the changes that I made have been saved and synced to the online version. Ideally, this is how it works for all of these files. Do you see a big need to work locally aside from just personal preference? Like, are there files that you think are things that maybe are going to be best handled in the full version of the desktop apps, or are most things pretty straightforward, like entering data into cells in Excel or editing a Word document, that sort of stuff? Yeah,
I know
pretty
that
straightforward.
For instance, when we're working on PDP stuff, something like that, you
Right.
know, when we're both in there and I see you and I'm like, oh, let me jump out.
Like the spreadsheet though, the Excel spreadsheet.
Our Excel spreadsheet where we're both working on it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about, I think,
Yeah.
really the only
That's the
one
only
that's.
thing. Any of
yeah,
those tracking spreadsheets is what we talk
Our
about.
tracking
Mhm.
spreadsheets.
Because it could also happen if you were in the appeal or somebody else was in
The
the
appeal file
the
or.
update file, that we could be in there at the same time. So what would be the recommendation?
Yes.
If it's something that you want to make sure you're not overstepping or stepping on someone else's toes, you'll see this share button, right? Next to the share button, you'll see
Yeah.
folks that are already in the same document as you.
Okay.
Don't you just, okay, Bridget's in there right now. I'm going to wait for her to finish or maybe ping her on Teams. Hey, did you forget this open on
So
your
that's
browser
just
tab?
like the OneDrive,
That's
then.
kind of what
It
we do
functions
right now.
really, really similarly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing that gets different is if I do decide I want to open the file in the desktop app. I'm in the browser version right now. I'm taking a look at this doc and I want to open it in the desktop app.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Open. And what'll happen is that should lock for editing.
Okay.
Got it.
And you'll see, look, I even got a little notice here to reduce the possibility of merge conflicts or upload failures.
Co-authors.
For
Okay.
co-authors, the
Switch to the Office for Windows.
Office, yeah, which is the one that allowed us to edit stuff simultaneously on the
Okay.
the browser.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's
So
like
it
when you're
lets you-
working in the middle of the night or at the crack of dawn, you're all by yourself, go ahead. But if you're
During the
working in
day.
the midst of the office, and other
Absolutely.
people could be in there too.
And this will be your workflow that you all figure out. Like, what's the best way? Does it really matter? Well, let's just double check whenever we open up something sensitive. Let's just check if somebody's in there. And even if you are working in the browser and it's not a file that's being locked down by the system, then other folks will know, okay, Bridget's in there right now. I'll just come back a little later.
And
Yeah.
that's the other thing. I think many times I forget to close something because you're just working and working,
Yeah,
and then
but
you
you're
just
real good if you get a little
yes, and then
reminder.
you get a reminder. Can you let me in that file? I'm like, sure, close it. Yes. So that's that's exactly what we do.
But I thought that's what we were getting away from with OneDrive, but we're really not.
There's some instances where it's simpler, and there's some instances where I think it's basically the same as what you're.
Versus with OneDrive, it's always a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So it's better.
The synchronization. So
So,
what
yes.
happens is currently with the OneDrive and the VPN, even if you save locked out, it still would read like, oh, you're still on it. There's a
Yes.
whole
Mm.
get off VPN, restart your computer so it'll officially disconnect. In this format, what it does is that if you were to pull it into the desktop app, do your edits, save and close it,
Yes.
it will close.
Right.
So
Mhm.
no one gets hung up while
Right.
it's officially
Got it.
closed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the big thing to know is and I think that this is where I've always imagined folks getting a little bit confused. I haven't seen this or haven't had people come to me with this problem, but I always imagined, okay, like right now I've got, let's say, okay, I'm going to open this doc again in the desktop app. Oops. Sorry, I got my Mac permissions all very restricted. Okay, so I've got this file, the Ambassador Bingo. This is one that we've got on our shared OneDrive, right? But I've also got, let's find another, got another doc as well. It's both Microsoft Word. This one I have saved locally on my desktop. This one I have saved in OneDrive, and I know the difference because of these saved icons. Save with the little circle on the bottom is syncing it to the cloud. This one's just a regular old floppy disk. I don't know why that's still the icon, but that's the icon.
People still know what to call it.
We do, but maybe the interns, maybe they're not. Yeah,
'Cause other people would call it a TV.
yeah, a little old TV box. Yeah. So that's for, at least for me, that's the easiest way to determine. Okay, did I save this stuff to the cloud? Is this a shared doc, or did I accidentally at some point make a copy, downloaded it, to my desktop? Because you can download any of the files in your OneDrive. You can download physical copies to your computer. But a lot of times I'm doing that when maybe I want to play around with something and it's not really anything that needs to be shared with other folks, or specifically we pull a big spreadsheet of all the registered students for any specific class because we use that to assign different software licenses. This class gets this license, this class gets this website, that sort of stuff. And I might just be taking a look, okay, how many folks did we already send stuff out to? This is just me playing around with stuff. So I'll download a copy on my computer. I'll make sure I change the file name so that I don't get it confused with the one that's, the source of truth or the real spreadsheet that I have saved on the cloud. And at a glance, you can tell just by this little save icon. So when I save this one, it's just local on my computer.
How do you actually save a copy from your browser?
You can, let's see.
It's like the commercial says, you don't print the internet.
Yeah.
It's already there.
So we've got our typical file browser navigation menu right here. You can click here and save as, or you can export.
Okay.
Yeah. Save as will let you save to a different place online. If you want to duplicate some stuff, maybe you've got a spreadsheet like template that you use semester after semester after semester. You can save that and you can save a different copy of it right there. Easier is to go just do that from OneDrive and say, okay, I want to click the 3-dot menu to pull the drop down and I want to make a copy. But you can do it straight from the dock as well. Or you can download a copy, or you can export it. Maybe you want a PDF or something like that. But yeah, you can do that through the web app. You can do that locally. You can just save as, and you can save on your, in your documents folder or whatever local storage solution you've got, and then sync the other one online. Yeah, just stuff, kind of handy things to keep in mind though, as you start to get used to the system. The difference between saving locally and saving online might look really, really similar, but one is just for you and the other one is something you're saving for everybody. So next on my outline, I've got viewing, sharing, editing documents. Is co-authoring, is sharing with read access versus editing access, is any of that confusing? Do you want me to go over any of that more?
That was probably the clearest part.
Okay, yeah. It's just simple stuff to make sure you're checking off when you're sharing files and folders with folks who don't already have existing access.
How can you change the access if you're like, you had a quick trigger and send something to someone else already and you're like, oh no, I need to give you either view or edit access?
That's a good question. Let's see.
Is that what you use the sample as the demo? Does that have everybody in it?
We can use a sample. Demo, let's see. It's open for a drag and drop. Nope, that didn't work. I guess this would be the way you'd have to revoke access and then reshare. Yeah. But this is that manage access button that I was talking about earlier. You can get to it through the share, or you can manage it through here. But basically, you just pull up. Here's a version of this here. We've got our demo Excel file. Here's everybody that's been shared with. Allison, Bryant, ACJ admin. And we can go ahead and click those folks, and you can see who has edit and who has view access.
I'm both.
You're
edit
both.
and view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a quicker way to just migrate people over from one to the other.
So when you call people and you say, I can't get in the document, they go here and change it typically?
Yeah.
When they haven't given you permission when they send it to you?
If somebody's sharing something with you and then you can
Right.
get into it to view, but you can't edit,
Right.
right? And it'll be real clear up at the top, you're editing or viewing.
Right.
Um,
Well, now that you showed me, I never paid attention to that either.
Uh,
It's like, what is this?
this isn't your fault because this menu up here is real confusing if you're not using a lot of these functions on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, but that's where it would be, and you
Mhm.
just have to go back in and manage the access
Yep.
to give me ability to edit if I just had view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I basically just say, I can't edit it, and they do whatever.
I mean, ideally, if you all are working in a bunch
Not
of
in our
tier
team, I'm talking about
with others,
people
yeah,
sending me things.
yeah, they need to change. They need to change access and reshare an editable link with you. Maybe more confusingly, I don't. Do you use Teams often? I mean, I chat with y'all every once in a while.
You trained us how to use it.
I did.
And
The
my staff trained me. They like it, so I use it more than I thought I would.
Good. I mean, I think it's handy. Something that Teams just did, or I just started noticing it doing more often, is I would share files through just the chat, like, hey, take a look at this Excel file or something like that. And for some reason, I noticed, like, within the last week or two, files I was sharing were being shared with only view access rather than edit access. So you got to go in there and specify even for stuff you're sharing directly. Yeah. And so, this stuff is pretty straightforward though. Once you get access, once you get things open, the document editing process is the same in the browser as it would be on the desktop app. So if you can use the browser, I think it's fine and gives you more of those kind of benefits of working online than the desktop version, which, maybe you're familiar with, but doesn't come with a lot of the kind of co-authoring and visibility to other folks' work as it does when you're opening up in a browser. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was offline use and syncing. So, since all these documents are online, right? This is all saved on the cloud. If you don't have access to the internet, then how do you access any of these documents? This can open up some cans of worms if you start to do a lot of work offline without resyncing, and then other folks are working on the same documents online, and then you've got to match up your offline work with their online work. Internet access is intermittent. Maybe there's an outage for an hour and a half, Saturday afternoon at home, and you needed to take a look at something, or USC is doing some upgrade on the network, and you are going to be down for 3 days. How do you keep working on all this stuff? And that's through syncing your files. Desktop Outlook app is great for that. You can do that in your file browser or file explorer as well. Basically, this is making a local copy or a local version of everything that is currently on the OneDrive. So you can sync with this button, sync, and that will sync the files locally. That way you've got a copy on your desktop, you can on your computer, you can open up that file and it'll sync to the web version. So you've got, technically it's 2 copies, but since they're linked online, they should both be up to date at the same time. As long as the person who's working locally on the computer has access to the internet, it'll update live on the web.
So what you're saying is if there were a power outage for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
or if I'm out of town and whatever.
No, in a hotel, no internet access or
there's
something.
No internet, exactly. Then when I'm back online, do I hit sync or so that I can get the information that someone has been updating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So it works both ways.
Okay.
You've got to sync before you go offline. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get copies of the files in the first place. But once you have those files synced, like for example, I've got my OneDrive synced on my computer. So I don't have a ton of documents on here, so it's not a huge
Okay.
amount of data. Maybe you've got, gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes, then maybe that's something you got to say, okay, I only want to sync certain specific folders. These are options that are outlined in USC ITS's tutorial. But the Outlook app should also prompt you if you want to sync specific files as well. You can sync the entire ACJ ADM1 folder though if you've got space on your device. You have to have hard drive space on your computer. But I don't know. Is there an idea of how large the shared drive is right now? Do you know? Your Y drive?
It's interesting. The other day, what was I trying to do? Oh, I was trying to grab a Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and it was saying that I didn't have enough space.
Hmm.
I gotta go see tech, probably.
Yeah, I mean, take a look. If you don't have enough hard drive space, then maybe you just
Gotta have
don't.
hard drive space.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got to have hard drive space to have anything downloaded. It's just like apps on your phone or whatever. You run taking too many pictures. You got to clear up some space on there.
Yes.
And so it's the same thing with this. As long as you've got the space on your computer, then you can sync to have local versions. You don't need to have this. Most of us have internet access, even if we're at a hotel for a conference or something like that. But if it's something that you're really, really worried about, you've got something super essential and you're going to be going to a place that's going to have spotty internet access, or your network's going to be out at home because Spectrum's doing some service or whatever in your neighborhood. Tell me about it. Then you can sync and you can save copies on your local device. And then when you get back to a place that has an internet connection, just make sure you sync so that you get the updates that were made for other files, and that your local files are updated online. The thing that I mentioned before, where maybe sometimes this could potentially open up some cans of worms, is if you are offline for a week and Brian's offline for a week, and you both are working on the same documents, then you go back to sync at the same time, and what do you got? You've got Brian's version, you got that version that was on OneDrive, and then you got your version, and that involves some manual work to figure out which version is the correct version, what you need to copy from your version and your version, and merge them together. So, ideally these are like safeguards. You download and work off of a local copy in the event that you don't have access to the internet, but hopefully you always have access to your network, and that means that any files that you're working on your computer, those are going to be syncing to the cloud version, so that Brian's not working on a different version than you are.
And that version history, that will be so important, because do they date stamp that?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. This is kind of the last thing that I think I had on my list to go over. It's at a different point. So let's take a look at version history for the demo Excel file that we were playing with earlier. Let's get this little pop-up out of the way. So we've got the first version when I opened it, 210. We've got a version at 214, 230, and 240. And let's take a look at this one. Actually, let's do this in the browser so we can open up multiple versions. So I've got this 4.0 version, the latest version here. And I'm going to pull up the other one in a different browser tab just so we can compare.
I would just never think to look down, but it's in alphabetical order, so I would, now that I see that.
Yeah, you get to sort your OneDrive how you
Yeah.
want to sort your OneDrive. This is how mine is edited. And
I think that's what happens with web right? When we filter the files, it'll stay that way.
We filter them.
Yeah, so like when you click on the columns in the top, like if you wanted to see it in alphabetical order, the name of the files, or
Oh,
what
yes.
the date was in the file, it stays whoever chooses that, doesn't it? Or is it just a view is the same no matter who's? Because in this one, that's the cool part. In this one, you customize it the only way you want to see it, and it doesn't affect anybody else's view.
I
If
thought
you
it
want
was just,
alphabetical, if you want chronological.
I thought it was always just alphabetical.
Yeah. For me, sometimes I need to see like that. Like I love version history because I'm just like, when was the last time I did this or worked on it?
Okay. Because the OneDrive, when you're in a folder, it's all just output, unless you, I guess, change it to date, time, or whatever.
So here's just, I mean, this is just a junk doc that we created, but I looked at our version history and I saw we had a bunch of different versions. It saves kind of automatically as it sees changes being made. So it's not something you have to manually do, but you should have, if you are working like in the desktop app and you click that save button, that should be one of the versions that will be listed in version history as well. But what you'll see here, this is the most current version here in my browser. And then we've got this other version that I downloaded a copy of, this older version, and I can compare the two. I've got new stuff on the new version. I've got test, JJ, DJ, mycell, and here we can see this older version is missing some of that information. So helpful when you're working on a document together, but maybe some of you are working locally, maybe some of you are working on something for a long time and you've had it opened and you haven't reconnected to your Wi-Fi network in a while and there's some new changes that need to be synced. In the event that you realize some data is missing or something that you input is not showing up for you, then take a look at that version history, download multiple copies of that, make sure you're labeling them so that you know, okay, this is the one that's showing all of Bridget's edits, this is the one that's showing all of my edits, and then you can manually, combine those two whenever you need to.
So why didn't Valerie's name have her initials by it and Bridget's name and my JJ, DJ?
In the other version? Because this one, if you look, you'll see your, this should still be open in your browser.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm still, so you see I'm in it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in it.
Okay. I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is showing live what cell each of us have selected. Bryant, you got it open in two windows, or two browser tabs.
You have two browser tabs too.
Yep.
God.
And
You have two browsers?
so that's what that was showing.
Okay, so I'm out of it now. So.
Yeah, and now I can see the only people that have it open are Bridget and Brian and
But
me.
it doesn't go back and put my initials by the thing I typed.
No. If you want to, annotate documents or comment, you can do that just like you can with a desktop version. Hey,
So that's what, Brian, that's what you did on yours?
Right now?
No.
What you see
From that version next under RSVP where it has BG.
Yeah, that's just me. That's me right now. Like
That's-
on it.
Yeah, Brian, why don't you want to select a different cell so we can see it move? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with me too, Allison. I'm the pink. That's
Mm-hmm.
me.
Right, but when you typed in Bridget Smith,
Mm-hmm.
that's the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one
Okay.
that doesn't have your initial by it. Not that one, I see that. I
Mhm.
see how that happens, but once you type it in and you move away from it, like in my
Yes.
cell, it doesn't have my.
It doesn't highlight it and say, I changed this
Right,
cell.
Allison did
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
it doesn't ever do that.
No, that's just not
Oh.
really how.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now,
There's
Allison,
so
are
many
you
things that I think would be useful, and it's just not in here. It's not wrong. I mean, it's
Right.
just that I had.
I do
this
think
image
that
of
there
my
are ways to see those person by person edits in
Uh-huh.
Excel.
But it is definitely in Google Docs.
In Google Docs, you can have individual.
So I don't see are you on that file right now?
I closed it.
Oh, you closed it. Okay, that's why I was like, oh, I don't see Allison in the
So
file.
I'll
Okay.
get back in and you'll see me up at the top.
There we go. All right, cool. Got it.
So yeah, show changes on it.
Yeah.
More powerful on the browser. But it's
Okay.
So
I see
so
you.
here now we can see all of the individual changes here. So this is handy again for tracking.
Oh, nice.
Sure.
Is Bridget done? You can see, okay, 40 minutes ago is when she last edited. I'm probably safe to jump in there and add these couple lines or whatever.
Oh, so that is good. Okay.
Um,
That's helpful.
Yeah, so that's just an Excel function. Good for the web when there's co-authoring though, versus that desktop version where you may be just emailing stuff back and forth or whatever. You can just click review and then show changes. Yeah, and then comments. I don't really use comments too often in Excel, but in Word docs I do. So this is handy. I've got it pulled up in Excel, but this is there just for all of 365. And you can have full conversations here. I mean, we do about a particular document. And then it's, something that I found really helpful, especially coming back to in the fall when we were coming back to work on-prem. I was trying to remember, okay, I have this operations manual. I remember there needed to be some updates that weren't made. How did I do X, Y, and Z? Because I just forgotten some of the stuff on campus. And I went back to that operations manual, found the comments that me and my previous boss had made when we were first writing it out, and was like, okay, this is a process that we updated. So handy stuff for at least your records. Keep some stuff straight. Confusions can be ironed out if you just say, hey, this is a temporary hold on, this particular section of a document or something like that. It's just kind of general best practices for working in files that other people are also working in. Yeah, I think that covers everything that I could think of with OneDrive. It functions really similarly to any other file browser you've used. It's a shared drive that you all have access to. There's some extra bonuses, one of which is that it's stored online in the cloud. You don't have to maintain any additional infrastructure. Like there's none of the IT team processes and stuff like that. This is all handled by ITS. Once you get your access and you've got your folders set up, it's all you. You don't have to go through anybody else to be able to, hey, I need an update, or somebody tells you we're going to expire access for something,
A new password.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the files that we have in the OneDrive, though, it's my understanding, we just can't move them to OneDrive. Isn't that correct?
Yeah,
Frank has to do it.
process it.
So what is he going to do? Do you know?
I don't know exactly. I don't use I've never accessed any of the shared drives, because I came into this team and we never used them. From my understanding, it sounds like he's going to not only copy the files, but he's going to make sure that access rights are all maintained between who has access to what files currently, and to make sure that those things are all replicated on OneDrive. And so it's not just dragging and dropping files. Takes some work. I know that they're pretty busy. They've got a big technology refresh in the media center that's been like many years coming. So that's like a big project that they're working on this summer.
We're not in a huge hurry.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you can at least start to use OneDrive for newer things going forward. If you've got small things that you are starting to work on now that you've got access to that central account, there are ways for you to start using OneDrive if that's not too confusing to have stuff in two different places. Or you can stick to the OneDrive for now, and then you've got the skill set in your back pocket whenever you're ready to pull it out.
Yeah, the move already, just because it took forever to count the numbers. We have a little over 42,000 files and 3,000 folders in our OneDrive right now.
You said 3,000 folders?
Folders. But there's and remember, the way folders is how many folders are in there.
Right, no, I hear you. I feel like I have
154 gigs, so.
Okay. I mean, not huge. Probably not a thing that you want to download to your desktop. 150 gigabytes. But if there's a particular folder, again, this is an edge case. This is a just in case kind of thing when you're syncing those files or folders to your desktop when you might not have internet access. You could always just sync the current project, your folder you're working on, or something like that.
And so when you turn your computer on and you start it up, it should give you all of the saved stuff that's there.
Yeah, in Windows, when you open up that OneDrive folder, then it should sync. And for Mac, you can go into the desktop app, and there's actually a little, just like in your browser, a refresh or sync button. I don't have files synced to my, not all of my files are synced to my desktop because I don't need everything. But if I wanted to, I could set up sync. I'm going to cancel it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff once you get used to calling it OneDrive instead of the shared drive or the OneDrive.
And hit save and it's there. Okay.
Yeah. Any questions? Anything that you could see now that we've kind of talked you through using OneDrive, things that might be confusing for you going on or that you want clarification on? No? All right. Cool.
We should